Happy Tuesday. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We appreciate it for week number 4 of our webinar series for Parent and Family Programs. Again, I'm Kim Sterrett, Director of Parent and Family Programs, and it is my pleasure today to be here with two of our finest academic advisors on campus. It is advising season. Students will start registering in the next few weeks, and they'll talk a little bit about the timeline of what your student can expect, how they can prepare. And so with that being said, I'd like to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. Thanks so much for being with us today. We appreciate it. And let the folks know who you are.
Absolutely. So I'm Randy Ham. I'm one of the advisors in Culverhouse College of Commerce, aka the business school. And I have been in the role for about a year. So feet wet, jumping in, ready to help your students out.
And I'm Tyler Roberts. I'm the Director of Pre-Law Advising in the College of Arts and Sciences. Work with a range of students across all colleges. So we're in the College of Arts and Sciences, but I work with students from all majors. And we are primarily in the College of Arts and Sciences, a first-year advising center over in Clark Hall. So yeah, excited to share some wisdom today.
Great, thanks so much. Randy, can you start by telling us a little bit about what the registration timeline is, when students should see an advisor, when they can anticipate actually clicking the buttons and selecting their courses, all that jazz?
Absolutely. So we actually start advising after the first 2 weeks of the new semester starting, and it is not long at all before we are completely booked up. At this point, every advisor in my office, and there are currently 8 of us who are advising, are booked up for an entire month, which means we're rolling all the way into when registration begins, which is October 30th. So we tell our students, make that appointment very early and get in to see us, because it becomes crunch time once registration has actually begun. And that's when they have to start coming to group advising, standby advising, and that's where you don't get the one-on-one time that we like to have with our students. So if they make the individual appointment, they get 30 minutes. And we can just sit down and kind of hash out everything that they're wondering about, with as far as major choices, minors, specializations, what classes to put where. We actually have time to sit down and really learn their story background and help them out from there. So we encourage them to make that appointment very early. I have students who are emailing me every day, "Hey Randy, when do you have time to see me?" And I tell them, call the front desk. They manage all of our calendars. So know your front desk people at every department. They are the gatekeepers. And like I said, we're booked out at this point all the way into November. So we can still get students in before they actually register, because it starts on October 30th, but it actually runs through, I want to say November 11th, 13th, something like that. And it all just goes by how many hours a student has. So the more hours they accumulate, the higher up they are in the registration timeline.
Sure. So I'll pick up where Randy left off. So as she said, registration begins on October 30th. For most freshmen, November 12th through the 15th. I looked at it before I came over. So that registration timeline you can find on registrar.ua.edu. And basically it's broken down by the number of hours that a student has completed entering the semester. So if a student came in with 27 AP hours, they would register before someone who came in with no hours. And so you just want your student to be aware of that timeline and to understand when they're advising or when their registration time is going to be. So that's when you're going to be clicking the buttons, is in that November, early part of November time range. So we're still a month out from that. Very similar to Randy, our college, and I think all the colleges across campus, we're relatively booked at this point. In our college specifically, we are going to go to a walk-in model. So walk-in advising will be an opportunity for students who need their registration pin cleared, need an opportunity to speak with an advisor, to come in during those select times and meet with someone one-on-one and have a conversation and get that registration pin cleared. So we're going to be in that model from October 16th through the end of that registration, so through that November 17th timeframe. So if students haven't had a chance to make an appointment, and like Randy, we sent out the initial email about 3 weeks into the semester. So at this point, all of our advisors are pretty booked solid with appointments, but they can take advantage, students can take advantage of that walk-in model. So regardless of what college you're in, know what options your college has for advising, and some will have express advising, group advising, different options that students can take advantage of. So as long as you know what those options are, we're still 4, 5, 6 weeks away from that registration time period. So if someone is on it now, they should be able to find the necessary means to get that taken care of.
Great. So you've let us know how a student can find out when they register through registrar.ua.edu. How, if a student is telling their family, I do not know who my advisor is, how do you recommend them figuring that piece out?
Can start.
Yeah, I'll start. So first of all, read your email, I guess would be the obvious, and that's the answer for just about any question I think that we would have in here. As I said, we sent out emails relatively early in the semester, so I do understand that students are caught up in other things at that point. So if you wanted to find out at this point, knowing your college's website, in our college, we're talking, it's as.ua.edu, and we basically serve 3 student populations. Pre-law, so I work with our pre-law population. We have pre-health students, and then we have our general advisors who see students in all majors who would not categorize themselves as pre-law or pre-health. So that's, again, across all colleges, just understanding where your advising offices are, and that website is going to be a key for finding. Some colleges I know put the advisors in DegreeWorks, and Randy may be able to speak to that. In arts and sciences, it will give a link to the student services email account. And from there, if a student has questions about who they should see, they can send a question to that email account and get a response promptly about who they would see based on what their major is. If they're undecided, they can certainly see any of our general advisors. But we try to be flexible. We're all capable of seeing students in those other majors, particularly first-year students, but we'd like to see people who are in our particular programs, for me, pre-law and then pre-health, as well as our general students.
And then in Culver House, we do not require specific advisors, but we do require advising for all students. So students cannot register, and this is hopefully a thing of relief for parents. Your child is never, ever going to just register for a bunch of classes they don't need, because they will not actually physically be able to register without meeting with one of us, and then we go in and actually remove what Tyler was talking about, advising pen or hold, so that they can then register during their time. Now, while we don't require specific advisors, they can make an appointment for anyone and see a different person the entire time they're here. I certainly encourage them to build a relationship with the same advisor. That way we know their history, we know their background, we know the things that they've gone through, and I think that can just really help so they're not repeating the same story every single semester to a new advisor. That being said, if they have it slipped their mind to make their appointment and they're waiting a little bit last minute and their preferred advisor is unavailable for several weeks out and there is someone who had a cancellation, then I certainly say get in there, just get in there. And then maybe during your preferred advisor's walk-in hours or on-call hours, which is we don't advise during that time, but we can answer quick questions. That's where they can at least get 5 minutes with their preferred advisor to just kind of, hey, can you check over everything and make sure I'm good to go, but get in as quickly as possible for the actual advising, even if it's not with their preferred advisor.
And Randy made a good point, and I'll echo that too, is some colleges do require students to see advisors in order to register for classes. So College of Arts and Sciences, any student who's declared in that has to, I believe engineering as well, but just knowing your college's policies, you don't want to sign on November 12th when you're eligible to register and find that you have a hold on your account. So understanding, and that's made clear, I think, through our email interactions. We've been preaching it with students since orientation. But just knowing if you do need to see an advisor in order to register, that PIN is non-negotiable. So you've got to see someone. And again, it should give some comfort to parents and students that we're going to be able to see with someone and make sure that we're checking all these boxes and doing the right things for this upcoming semester.
I do have one quick thought. I thought about thinking that a lot of parents viewing may be parents of first-time students or first-year students. In Culver House specifically, our freshmen take a freshman seminar called GBA 145. If your child is in that class, they are actually being advised in class. So they do not need to make an individual advising appointment. And we have been telling them that in our classes, do not make individual appointments because we need to save those spaces for our sophomores, juniors, and seniors, because not all of our freshmen are in GBA 145, but hopefully the vast majority of them are, like over 95% of them are, and they will actually be advised in class, their pens will be cleared, and they do not need to make those individual appointments. So that's an FYI if your student is in GBA 145.
That is a great piece of information. In an ideal world, right, your dream students, what kind of preparation does a student do before their advising appointment?
So I I tell students, you can come to me with absolutely nothing. You can be a blank slate and we'll put something together. But I think the more prepared that they are or the more questions they have ready, the better we can help them. If a student comes to me and says, I've been in school now for 3 or 4 semesters and I still don't know what I want to major in, I have no clue what to do, it's really hard for me to advise them on what classes they should be taking, because by the 4th and 5th semester, they're taking classes specific to their major. So early on, we are in Culver House, a lower division, upper division school. Lower division is pretty cut and dry. We have a pretty standard set of classes they have to take, and for us, it's a matter of helping them figure out when to take those. So the thing while they're in lower division, which is anything under 60 hours, is more knowing your options for your natural sciences, your humanities, your histories, and your literatures, because in our advising appointments, we don't have the time to really go through the descriptions of every single class of the 80 or 100 humanity or fine art options or whatever. So having an idea and saying, okay, here's 3 I've heard about. What's your advice on these 3 humanities? Which one should I take? Happy to give my opinion on that. But then when they start moving into upper division, the preparation is key. By the time that they are rolling into that 4th semester, which is typically for your average student, that's the last semester of lower division, we want to have a decent idea of what we're going to major in. And this we'll touch on resources in a minute, but that's where the Career Center comes into play, because the Career Center is really there to help them kind of craft that career that is ideal and how to get there, and then what major makes the most sense. So then I step in with, okay, well, here's how we put the classes into place, because some of our majors, they are very specific prereqs that you have to take in order to stay on track to graduate on time. So if a student veers off track or changes their major or adds something, that certainly can change graduation timeline. But if you have a freshman or sophomore student who just really still is very unsure about what they want to do, but know, okay, I know I want to do business, but I don't know what, that's okay. They can totally come to us and we will help them figure that out.
So for us, it's primarily a first-year advising center. We are seeing mostly freshmen. We also see some sophomores with some who don't quite have the credits to be considered a sophomore yet. We also see any first-year student. So if your student comes in with 40 AP hours, we still want to see them in that first year to help them get solidified at the university. In a perfect world, what does a student come in with? Well, they have a basic understanding of DegreeWorks. So DegreeWorks is the auditing software that we use to make sure that you're fulfilling your requirements. So you heard Randy talk about humanities and social behavioral sciences and foreign language computer science. And it's not like we expect students to be an expert in all of those different areas, but if they have some idea of how they're going to fulfill those requirements or an idea of courses that they might be interested in each of those areas, it makes it a little easier for us and allows us to have conversations about other things, which we'll talk about as we move forward. So just coming in with some type of plan, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be a general idea of, I want to work on my core requirements. I want to have a class in this area, in this area, in this area. I want to take one class toward a major. And I'm still trying to figure out what my minor is going to be, so I may want to try something over in this particular college. That's perfect. If we can start from that point, then me or whoever that student is meeting with can fill in the gaps from there. But as Randy said too, we see a lot of students who come in and are completely cold and they don't have any idea what they want to take. And that's fine too. And we can certainly work them through those things, especially in this first semester. As we move forward, we want students to be more prepared. And so our model in arts and sciences, as I mentioned, we're a first-year advising center. So after that, in that sophomore, junior, senior year, students are going to go to their department for advising. So if you're a political science major, you're going to see political science faculty. Biology majors, you're going to see biology faculty. So by that point, that's why we want to get most of the education aspects pieces together in that first year, so that when you're moving forward to your major advisor, you can have conversations about careers and other things as well as that class component. So just having a general idea and a general plan is great.
Awesome. Is there any 1 or 2 resources that you feel like students are not necessarily aware of that would be super beneficial that parents and family members might be able to promote to their students?
Well, I would say for us, they shouldn't be unaware of them because we definitely push them pretty heavy from the get-go. And so your child will hopefully have heard of these, but may not realize that they should be tapping into them. The biggest one that we recommend our students who are not in class choice, but once they're in the class and struggling and know, okay, I have to pass Econ 110 in order to take Accounting 210, but I'm really struggling with Econ, whatever, is the Center for Academic Success. There are free tutoring sessions Monday through Thursday night for 2-hour blocks for almost all of our lower division business classes that we require that students do sometimes have trouble with. I know they offer services as well for science classes, some other math classes beyond what we require. So that's a big one, Center for Academic Success. Also, a lot of individual departments will do tutoring with their TAs. So grad students who are pursuing a master's or a doctoral degree have to do office hours. It's a requirement. They sit in a room and they wait for underclassmen to come in and be tutored. So they're there, they're ready to help, and that is a completely free service. And then around big test weeks and finals, you'll start to see a lot of flyers going out with private tutors. And while there are a lot of free resources available, certainly paying a private tutor, if it's within the means, is helpful because then it's that one-on-one tutoring. And then as far as, well, I just know I do business, but I really don't know what that looks like. I mentioned it a second ago, and that's our Career Center. In Culver House, we are incredibly lucky. So we have the large Career Center here in the Ferguson Center that services all nearly 40,000 students that we have at UA. But in Culver House, we have a satellite career center that is fully staffed. So there are 3 full-time career advisors, as well as an internship coordinator, as well as someone who manages our Culver House Connections program. So students, hopefully every single one of our students makes an appointment at the Career Center at some point while they're in lower division to just help them kind of see what the options are. They start with things as simple as a personality test. Let's figure out what you're just innately good at, and then go from there, because sometimes that'll pull out things they didn't realize that they were good at. Okay, I'm actually pretty good at this sales thing, so maybe marketing with a specialization in sales is right for me, but I never would have known that if I had not gone to the Career Center. So that's a great place to start for students who are just really unsure of what direction they want to go. And then if they're in the business school but unsure about business in general and thinking, maybe I do want to do biology or engineering or whatever, then the Career Center here in the Berg is incredible and full of resources that are completely available to your students. So certainly encourage them to visit this Career Center as well.
Center for Academic Success and Career Center are the correct 2 answers, but I'll bring up one other, and this is one that's very obvious, but that students don't take advantage of, and that's their professors. So that's the number 1 resource if a student is struggling in a class. If you're struggling in your Biology 114, 115, or Chemistry 101, or Math 125, every professor on campus has office hours and time when they're available to meet. And I know that can be intimidating for freshman students. We teach these AS 101 freshman compass courses similar to GBA 145. And one of the things that we talk about is developing the skills necessary to have those conversations and to get over that initial fear. So we want our students, if you can take that leap relatively early in your college career and go in and sit and realize, hey, these are just people just like our advisors and just like our teachers were in high school, and have that conversation. Taking advantage of your professor's office hours, I think, is a great place to start. Similarly to Culver House, we do in Arts and Sciences have our own in-house, we call it experiential learning department. So getting students connected with student organizations, with internships, with study abroad, all those different opportunities that happen outside of the classroom. Experiential learning is a key component to being successful on campus. So as soon as you've got that academic component and you're feeling really good about, okay, I'm doing well in my classes, I've found the routines and the balance that I need to be successful there, that's when it's time to start filling in with some of those additional opportunities. So getting connected with the experiential learning department, and again, regardless of which college that you're in, using the overall Career Center or using those resources in the college to help you supplement what you're doing in the classroom.
Absolutely. I had a student tell me this summer, which I had never thought about it this way, that most of the time we think of tutoring as I need tutoring in order to just simply pass the class. And the key to tutoring can sometimes be, I really want that A. So instead of just doing it on my own and getting a B, I can go and do my homework with a tutor that I was going to do my homework anyway, but they're going to be there to help me if I get in a pinch, and they can help me move that grade from a B to an A. So it can be for all levels and all.
I used to emphasize that in I worked in athletics before I moved to the current position that I'm in, and in every recruiting visit that I gave, athletics has their own tutorial services, and I emphasized that exact point, that there's this stigma that comes with tutoring. Okay, tutoring is for people who are struggling or people who are doing poorly, but tutoring is to reach your maximum potential and do the absolute best that you can, and those services are there for students. So if a student is reluctant or doesn't think that that's something that they want to do, or that this doesn't fit me, I have a B- in this class, or I have a B+ in this class. No, you want to do it as well as you can, and those grades, those half grades, make a lot of difference when you talk about GPA. So just encouraging students, to take that step, and they'll thank you for it, I think, in the long run.
Absolutely. Well, I've got one last question for you, and that is, what is your one piece of advice for parents and family members as they try to support their student through this advising and registration process for the spring?
So I have a 3 and a 1-year-old, so remind me of this advice when mine are in college. So mine is to be supportive but not overbearing, and be involved but don't plan everything out for your student. So what I mean by that is, we want you to be involved. I think it's incredible when parents are aware of what's happening. So we create plans for our students. If they're in lower division, we create a plan to upper division, and once they're in upper division, we create a plan all the way to graduation. Sometimes even in lower division, we create a plan all the way to graduation. So ask your student to see that plan. Say, hey, can you show me your degree works? I'm not saying ask for their password so that you can get into degree works when they're not looking, but sit with them and have them explain the plan to you so that you understand the curriculum that they're in. I had a student recently whose parent wanted him to take a specific history, and he didn't want to take that history. He wanted to take a different one, but he said, I don't have a choice. I have to take this one history. Well, what does that say from the beginning? That he's not going to be as involved in that class as if he had taken the history he was more interested in. So be involved, but not overbearing. We want that. They want that. Even if they pretend like they don't want you to know anything, they do. They know that you care. But when we have a parent who we have to call on speakerphone when I'm trying to have an advising session, who's interrupting everything I say when I'm trying to talk to the student, that can become challenging. And we certainly welcome parent phone calls, but when we're with your student, we want to be with them, and they tend to really respond well to us when we're one-on-one and can dig into everything they've got going on, especially if there is something that's posing a little bit of a challenge, whether it's something academic or personal or whatever. So don't worry, they're in good hands with us. As I mentioned, they will not register for any classes that are just off the wall, not related to what they're doing, because they come to us. We actually put it on a worksheet. We scan the worksheet into the system. They take a copy home with them. So there's lots of resources if they lose their worksheet to find out what are the classes Randy told me to take. So that's my advice. Like I said, in 15 years when my kids are in college, I may be, just remind me of that when I'm trying to sit in the advisor's office with my child to plan out their life. But that's, from my perspective now, that's my best advice.
After being through all this, I don't think I'm going to want to sit in my kids' advising appointments, but very similar answer, but encouraging your student to be flexible and to realize that this is a bit of a longer process than even what we've outlined today. So we mentioned the November 12th or November 15th or whatever day that your student's going to be registering. And what we see a lot of is students, they have a plan, so they've done what they're supposed to do, they've gone and met with an advisor, and then guess what? When they go to register for that one section that they want to be in, the class is full, and all of a sudden it's chaos, and I can't get anything, my whole schedule is falling apart. And what I would say is, and I know this is difficult because it's the only experience that the student has had to this point, but take a deep breath. It's okay. And you can certainly, that's an appropriate time to contact an advisor. But having a plan and having a backup plan in mind is essential for course registration. So you may not have gotten into that first choice class, particularly as a first year student. Classes, as we mentioned, it's going to go chronologically based on the number of hours that you have. So if you're registering later in the process, there may be, if you have a class that's very popular, may be full, but have a backup plan in mind and realize that between November 15th and the time the next semester starts, you've got 2 months in there. Be aware, if you really want to be in that class, keep your eye on it. There will be people who make changes, people who drop classes over winter break as we come back, during the first week of classes even. So just be flexible. Also think about the times when you're taking classes. I think that's something that students are starting to realize is what times do I function best? You know, am I someone who wants to knock everything out in the morning, or do I not get going until the afternoon? You know, am I better having things condensed into fewer days? Encourage your students to think about that. How do they operate best, and what schedule is going to work best from them from a time management standpoint? But overall, just be flexible and just realize that if you do have issues, even once you get past that registration and advising period, you've signed up for classes, all of us are going to be available until the end of the semester and even beyond. So if your student has questions, they don't get into exactly what they want, again, have a backup plan in mind and try to get things situated as best you can. You want to get into 12 to 16 hours and have that full-time schedule. But if it doesn't work out perfectly, just realize that there are opportunities to make adjustments leading up to the semester. And a lot of those classes aren't going anywhere. So if you don't get into the class this semester, obviously with prereqs, that's a little different. So if you don't get into a prerequisite class, then you would want to take steps to get into that class. But for the most part, if you're looking at a humanities or that computer science or foreign language, there's going to be opportunities to take those classes in future semesters. So just being flexible, taking a deep breath, and understanding that there are people here to help you if you have issues, and just going with the flow.
That's great. Great words of wisdom. What I have heard and picked up from our conversation today is some of the key questions to ask your student. Who is their advisor? Where is their advisor located? Do they have a meeting set with their advisor? What is their plan to meet with their advisor? Does their college or department have a requirement that they have to see an advisor before they register, or is that not something that affects your student? What are the classes that they're considering? What are the times of days that they function best? And if those classes that they're considering don't work out, what's plan B, what's plan C, what's maybe plan D in the event that those classes don't work for this semester, or that they need to keep adjusting throughout winter semester or winter break, or when we come back in January. So I do want to say thanks so much once more to our guests today. We really appreciate the information, and hopefully that will help you best support your student. Thanks so much. We will look forward to seeing you all again next Tuesday for our next session of our webinar. Have a great day.